say, but in many ways,
Okay.
because I want to come very low to people who are not techie, people who actually have kids, they want to encourage coming to tech. So I want to address different audience in my speech. And also thanks to the audience, so many people, familiar faces, I'm happy to see. Yeah.
Okay.
Should I start or you want me to?
Yes, please, you can go ahead. I'm here, but I'll be muted. So if you need me, just
okay. Okay. And please feel free to drop a message if you have any questions. So first thing, what is tech? Or let's understand the different aspect of tech, because a lot of people, when you get tech, the first thing that comes to their mind is programmers or people who create websites. Or some people, or parents will misunderstand that you are in tech or you create website. Oh, come help me fix my computer. Like, so many aspects of tech, and people need to know what actually works for them. So I'll take time to break that down, from the high level of what exactly is tech or different aspects of it. So we have backend engineers, and backend engineers are responsible for things on the back side of what you see on the front side. Like front side would be the website. When you're browsing CNN.com, or when you're browsing Mr. D, what you see on the front is being powered by so many things on the back. So there are people who are responsible for that. And it could be, API experts, embedded system engineer, database engineer, or whatnot. Then we have front-end engineers. In fact, front-end engineers, we can slice them into different components. We can have people who are responsible for the UI. UI is what we call user interface. For example, what we're currently seeing on Slack is a user interface. Somebody designed the grid, right? Somebody designed the images where they'll stay, where the record button will be, participants, everything you see is designed by somebody. And we have UX. UX is also not the same thing as UI, because the also confusion that comes to mind when you say UI engineers, graphic designer, people who print banners and handbills, they are very different, very different from UI engineers. What describing people who take a lot of time to research the best user interface for different products. Right, and that's why a lot of people love iPhones or the i products, because a lot of design and aesthetics goes into play here. I'm not saying a lot of brands don't do the same, but I'm saying it's very, very common with the i products. So I mentioned two roles. Some people who create the user interface, what people interface with, and user experience, with the UX people who create the experience, right? And that's why a lot of people prefer maybe a Zoom over a Hangout, or people prefer Hangout over Zoom, because it's easy to operate. And that's why for an iPad, the user experience is very great, because you don't need a manual to learn how to operate it. Even kids can find their way around. Okay, so that's what we call experience, user experience. Now we have other people responsible for the web itself. So if people write HTML, when you click on those links, this is what you see, and that kind of interaction on the web. We call everything all together make up the front-end engineers. We also have people who do the same for desktop. So all these things is not limited to a website. It also goes to desktop, mobile apps, and all different interfaces. Then we have the mobile apps engineer. I'm taking my time to break this thing down so that at least if you have a sense of the different aspect of engineering or software systems, you would probably find your niche. Because the problem we've had over time is that people have been hammered into different niche, and they don't thrive there, or sometimes they get frustrated. They're not happy, not fulfilled. Even though they're very brilliant, they still cannot find their placements. And just the analogy I like to use is that you can be a talented footballer, but you have a place on the pitch, right? You could be the keeper, you could be, the striker, you could be a winger. So whatever your placement is, if you're not there, you could actually do cause more harm than good. So it's true for engineering too. Some people are very good DevOps engineer, people who are in the infrastructure side, ensuring that, website is not vulnerable to attack. And some people on the mobile side apply a lot of apps that we use. In fact, there's an app that was sold for 7-figure. What's the name again? Somebody dropped the name again. something, I can't remember, but it's a game people play every morning. You see some, tiles or checkered, you get something, word something, I can't remember the name. So it was the game created, and that means we have people who are very talented programmers, but they thrive in the area of gaming, right? So I go on to the next, hardware embedded system engineers, and you can see a lot of cars embedded with tech. There are people who are building those kind of level of interface, and we also have people who build for humans. For example, the hearing aid is a type of type of tool, but developed is a type of tech, but developed for human interface. This is also okay. Waddle was the word. Thanks, Ahmed. Waddle was what I was looking for. This is also another kind of device, right? The airport. And you can't design something like this without understanding how the ear works. If not, you'll be creating things that are very detrimental to people's hearing. So bioengineering, another field. And just like I mentioned, people who create the, what's it called, hearing aid, people create the heart pacer, people create so many things that are used in the medical world that kind of find a way to actually sit very comfortable with the human biology, right? And the other fields that I love so much, field around genetics programming. And that's why I love genetic programming, is because it is it's scary at the same time as very helpful. Some of the food that you eat, I was reading the history of cucumber, and I realized that fruit was to be very big and very whatever. So a lot of people take cucumbers, they have no idea of what has happened, the evolution, or what humans have done to augment for what we eat. And there are so many genetically modified products. When I was smaller, the mangoes that we eat, very small. And suddenly you have a mango the size of my head because a lot of modifications have happened. And not just that, we have people who are trying to find cures for current, try to find a way to, modify or create smart cell attack, or make at least create or modify our cells to be immune to all different diseases that we come to face, either it's Corona, COVID, SARS, Ebola, and a lot of people who are in that cutting edge engineering, rewiring or reprogramming our cells to be smarter to be able to defend itself. So yeah, that's another aspect of tech people don't know, but it's programming, even though it's in the biological, is in the biology world. So we have nanotech. There's also another interesting thing. People who create same tool, same, but this time is a very, very small scale. So you can imagine if you have okay, in fact, we all know this. This was not the size of phones in those days. Phones used to be very big, and suddenly we're reducing the sizes. And before you know it, we have something smaller than this, right? Very soon, who knows, there might be maybe smart glasses or whatnot. So we have people who are invested in that aspect of creating very small tech. And sometimes you can have them ingested, right? So you have some things you swallow, and they are smart robots that can go fix some things inside of you. And we have people who are focused on creating things in that regard. I can keep mentioning things that are from very complex, and there are aspects that are management. Like we have project managers, right? People who ensure that the timeline set, the budgets, and the resources available for a project is being optimized. And they are really valid aspect of tech, because if you don't have those kind of people, things can just go out of whack, right? So we have quality assurance personnel, people who ensure that the products that are being released are of high quality. They do extensive testing, and so that when you are operating your application, it's actually very seamless because somebody has actually gone through the vetting process. Now, I am saying this with a very, very important emphasis, because a lot of parents, you can only culture people into what you know, right? And if you ask a child, would you want an iPhone or you want a Nokia phone, they will just spout any answer because they have no idea of the power of both of them, right? So I'm saying that if you as a parent do not understand the different dynamism in the tech world, you might just, force people into a very narrow aspect of it. And, that would be very detrimental to your kids. So haven't mentioned this. I can't, it's so diverse. We have the InfoSec, we have the data engineer, and we have all whatnot. So just too many aspects of tech, right? And I'm saying that people will fit into different aspects. People who are very good graphic engineer, you don't have to be painting on the canvas. If you are a very good graphics person and you love tech, you could be a good graphics engineer, right? There's a placement for you in tech. Also, people who are lawyers, people who even do what's it called, ergonomics, or people who study psychology. In fact, that's one of the things people found out about social media, because they hired a lot of psychologists to join in the effort to create things that are really very addictive. And that's why you see a lot of people will spend hours on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, we waste a lot of hours just because a person who actually has nothing to do with tech, but understand how the human, behavior works, is now, adding that kind of the wealth of knowledge into tech. So what I'm saying very is that the technologists of the future are not the ones just coding, but people who understand so many aspects. And that's why system engineering is really very critical. In fact, if I want to encourage anybody to study any aspect of engineering, don't study civil, just civil. Don't study just mechanical, because you are studying for something that will soon be irrelevant, right? I'm not saying that people won't be building, but you all know that people who are building houses these days are building smart houses, right? They need to understand how, some other things work, right? You need to understand a bit of weather or a bit of soil texture. If some of the things that was not a thing in the past, suddenly you now have to understand them. If not, the best place you will build in probably rural areas and villages, you will not be able to, like the Bujarab, you can see a lot of engineering that went into that is even outside of just civil. So I'm saying that the challenges that we're faced today cannot be solved by just one aspect of engineering. So you need people who are doing other mechatronics, bioengineering, biomedical. It's just telling you that more fusion. In fact, we have financial engineers now, right? Who would have thought that finance and engineering will ever actually meet? So I'm saying that the more we have complex problems to solve in our planet today, the more you can address that same problem with a narrow spectrum, because then you will not be able to actually solve them to the fullest. So be very open-minded as parents, and expose your kids a lot. I like what the last speaker said about how her parents helped discover some of the things that she's currently doing. Some of us were not privileged. We went through hassles, a lot of hassles, and eventually we had people point us in the right directions. I've been programming now for about 13, 14 years, right? And I've been teaching people in different aspects for 15 years. So I have spoken to many people, and I can see kids, parents trying to force into aspect of things that are already obsolete. Like you have to study law. Why? Because I feel law, you have to study law, right? I couldn't get into the medical school. You have to just get there, right? To continue my mission. And nobody asks the question, how relevant is this course in the next 3-5 years? Nobody asks that question, right? And in fact, some people just want to get into school, regardless of, what it takes. Even if you're very brilliant, it's of no consequence what you study. And we have, very brilliant minds that actually would have revolutionized different aspects of life, but they are busy in the bank, teller one, teller two. And here we are trying to still find solutions to those problems. So I'm trying to say that if you don't tailor or help create that enabling environment for your kids, you are actually doing everybody a disservice. So let me now probably wrap up by going to aspect of things that are non-tech, but actually plays a very important role to how, whether you succeed in tech or not, they are very vital things that you need to pay attention to. So the role, I call it roles of parents and guidance. Number one, I think the last speaker did a lot of justice, but I'll just reiterate, don't force or intimidate them into studying what is not natural with them. And how would they know if it's natural with them? They came from you. So if you don't understand how you work and some of your natural disposition, you will force them into some things that are not like you, right? And today you can see Ronaldo's son is already signed up to a football club. And that's because it came from Ronaldo. Everybody knows it. You must just you have to, maybe a part of you is football, even if you do some other things. Like Tiger Woods also, a part of him too, same thing. So I'm not saying that exactly what you do for money is what your kids must do. But I'm saying that because they came from you, there's something that's natural with you. So if you're very natural, like the last speaker spoke about how her dad was very, is very artistic. And by influence, she too is artistic. She might decide not to use the same artistry in music. She can use that probably in other aspects, but the truth is that is in her, right? She can use that in tech. She can use that in different aspects. So she needs to find how natural habitats, even though she knows there's something that's in it with her, right? So don't force people and don't coerce them, don't trick them. Tricking would be, if you don't study this, I won't pay your school fees. You know, we hear a lot of things like that. Or if you study this, I'm going to buy you this. And like, you know, it's tricking them into doing things that are not natural with them. It's very, very dangerous. So I go on to the next, and you already have mentioned that. She also mentioned that they are good imitators. Kids are good imitators. Don't spend a lot of time speaking. They don't hear what you say. They watch you. So you make it life very easy for them by being an example of things you want them to do. You want them to be good readers. Go ahead and read a lot of books. By default, they will pick it up. You want them to be very truthful, do the same thing, right? And you find them following suit. Another very important thing is that you cannot teach kids. I've said that many times. Don't attempt to teach kids. Like a lot of people have not wondered why they speak languages, right? And I've not seen anyone said, sit down here. Here is the board. Let me show you how to speak in my language. Nobody does that. They just speak it, right? So because they pick things like that, it means that fundamentally you can't teach them. But what you can do is to create the conducive atmosphere that allows for learning, right? I'm saying that it's true for kids. It's also true for teenagers or for adults, because you're trying to teach them chemistry, biology, and you're just struggling, when all you have to do is just create an environment that allows that to thrive by default, right? So please, if you know you can't, if you know the truth that you can't teach them, then you will stop trying to teach them and just focus on how you can create things that would allow them to learn by default. The next thing is guard against environmental and trends, right? And some of these things people pick from the social media, from schools, even from the home. And some of the things you pick will be, how the society projects a successful person, right? That's some of the things you have to guard against. If not, your children will be trying to be like that, and you'll be wondering why. Because all they've seen on somebody who is sagging, somebody who is into drugs, somebody who is not well dressed, and that's what success, and that's what is celebrated. They would want to do like that. And a lot of people watch Whiskey, watch the video, and they see what they do, right? And before you know, they convert the lifestyle like that. I'm not saying that an aspect of them is not good, but the part that is very detrimental that you don't want them to do, right? So if you're not careful to guard against that, you just find them doing that, right? So I just say that things you need to guard against is what society projects as success, right? And what they project as failure and their sense of self. Because if not, people develop inferiority complex because somebody somewhere believes that life should be like this. And if they are not like that, there's a problem. They don't have phone in school. And because you don't want them to have phone, you want them to focus, but they don't believe like that because all their kids have phones, and you don't have that orientation in their minds to tell them this is not right. So they would believe that a failure all their lives, right? And don't raise them to be extremely dependent. This is really, really very important. In fact, if you've not had anything I've said so far, this point is very important. If you raise them to be dependent on you, they will grow up like that. And last week I spoke about confidence, but this is not even confidence. I'm saying that if they don't trust their own judgments, their own choices, and I'm not saying you lead them to make very rash decisions, but I'm saying at least make them realize the consequences of choices. So I'm not saying you shouldn't go to school, but I'm saying if you don't go to school, this is what the implication will be. And let them face the implication, right? Supervised, obviously. But if you don't train them that way, they grow up to be adults that can't make choices by themselves. And if you can't make choices by yourself, the best other option will be your friends. Oh, you got pregnant out of wedlock, or it's a thing that is accepted, let me do the same. And you are struggling as a parent to teach something else because the only thing they've learned is, Mommy, should I do that? Mommy, should I not do that? And you're not teaching them to understand that, yes, I can tell you what to do, but pay attention to the whys that tell you to do them. Pay attention to the implication that you have to face when you go this route. So I feel that kids need to build that mentality from the very young phase. That if I don't read my book, if I don't do well, these are the implications. Not because daddy will beat me, not because mom will beat me, but this is what I'm going to face, right? So if kids are raised in that way, it's going to help them because in technology, so many top choices to make. Right, if you're working in financial system, you can actually, with a click of a button, siphon the whole company's money into your purse. You can do that, right? And what you need to be, you need to know what the implication of that kind of lifestyle is, so that you can guard against them. So people who are not raised in that manner will find it very difficult to make similar choices in the technology sector. So I'm not sure how long I have left, but I just wanted to drive some of the soft skills that makes for a successful engineer, right? It will go a very long way. So just let me know how long I have left if I continue.
You have you started early. You actually started earlier than you should have. So you have, technically you're supposed to have this is 1937, so you have about 20 minutes.
20 minutes more?
20, yes. So I mean, you don't have to talk for that long, because so just when you're done.
Yeah. Okay. The way I love it was that people ask questions and I can answer from the wealth of my how do I get into tech? But I will make allowance for questions, because I don't want to speak into the very complexity of the things that I've been doing. Then it would just be about me. But I'm seeking to speak to people who probably might be friends you have, the one who comes into tech. Okay, Isaac, you have questions, so go ahead and ask questions. So it might be friends you have want to get into tech, because it can be like a mystery. Tech can be like a mystery, and mystery because it's so vast and you don't even know which of them should I do, which of them should I not do. Just too crazy. It's a crazy world. So let me take Isaac's question. Maybe it's going to open up a whole different world.
Okay. Hi, Isaac. Please type your question. Okay, you're muted. Okay, please go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead.
Isaac,
are you there?
Can you speak?
Okay, we can't hear you, but if you have issues.
Go ahead. Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So from the last speaker, Adedayo, she was speaking a lot into writing, and Mr. OLAOLU is also speaking about tech. So I was trying to look for like the meeting points between tech and writing, because I know there is, for the only bit I know is that there are UX writers, and like that's a bit of like they take the flow of UX and UI and they put it into writing. So I wanted to know what other opportunities, apart from being a technical writer, exist in tech, and what really is the connection between tech and writing that can be leveraged.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Isaac. And I would tell you, anything that is true outside tech is true inside tech. Like we have medical people in tech, we have writers in tech, we even have musicians in tech right now, right? Because I think NAS invested so much in a lot of tech company, and right now it is in money. But let me speak to your question. So when you go to a website and read about products, technical aspect of products, either somebody describing the new Mac, right? Because I'm privileged to have one, and I realized that the battery can go for almost a day and a half, like on a full charge. And somebody's going to write to convince you to buy that, because they would speak to what the ergonomics is, how the keyboard is, what the lighting is, and how the retina display. Somebody needs to go into that research and write about them. Sometimes very technical people don't have all the time in the world to write what they actually produce. And that's why we also have product managers of business. That's what I'm looking for. But what they are able to do is to study the product, understand the pros and cons, then write them down for people who are not very technical, but very simple enough, just like the way you read storybooks or science and fiction, but this time around adapted to a particular product. So if you are that kind of person who can interact with the products, gadgets, in fact, there is a guy that is making so much money on YouTube today because he does a review of products. In fact, a small boy, I can't remember how old he is because I've not watched some of the videos, but I know that he makes a lot of money just by reviewing toys, right? He takes the toys, he reviews.
Brownlee, I think. I know the guy, Marcus Brownlee. Yes, he said very.
You can imagine. Very young, and all he does is review the toy and blah blah, and they pay him a lot of money. But what I'm saying is that that's an aspect of public speaking that is into tech. It could be tech, it might not be tech, but I'm saying that people who do those kind of, write-ups. Then we have marketing too. Marketers don't just speak into thin air. Somebody needs to do the research and write for them. And based on what has been written, they can, target ads or, do publications or even do interviews. So if you're a writer, it's plenty of opportunity for you in the tech world. People who write documentations, right? If you use some softwares, you see documentation alongside. It is being created by somebody in the tech, right? So feel very free to explore different aspects of writing. It could be for the marketing. It could be technical writing about what a product does and how it does it. It could be writing about how a software works. And so many aspects you can explore if you are a writer. So thanks for that question. So let me just go on to reiterate the very soft skills, because I keep saying that it's very easy to teach a kid how to code, but if it doesn't have the foundation of the soft skills, it won't go far, right? In fact, people who go far in tech is pretty much about the soft skills they possess, right? How can you communicate? Right? What are your ethical, background? If you lie a lot, then even with your technical understanding, you will not do too well in tech. So a bit of sincerity is required, a bit of accountability is required. Then there is one aspect too. You need to teach them money. I don't know why parents feel that kids shouldn't know anything about money. It is very painful. Imad, I'll take your question. As soon as I just make this point. When I say money, it means that they must realize that things should not be done for free. So you have somebody who's spending all day creating something and it's all for free. They must understand, how do I monetize this thing that I'm currently doing so it doesn't become a colossal waste of time. Part of money will be investment. Can I convince mommy to invest into my company? Yes. Can I, if mommy invests like $50 into my company, how do I ensure that I stay profitable and I don't blow everything on sweet? You need to teach them that aspect. Okay. So Emmanuel, let me hear your question before I carry on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. OLAOLU. I have a question to ask. Sorry, why am I saying that? That's why I raised my hand. So, what is your take on the 10,000 hours rule plus deliberate practice when it comes to coding, approach coding, having the 10,000 hour rule and deliberate practice at the back of his mind or her mind?
Excellent. So I will speak from my life, right? Because I only speak of things that I practice, and 10,000 hours, maybe somebody did that research and came to that conclusion. What I believe is that if you cannot build a culture of something, you cannot sustain it, right? And if you don't build an internal capacity to manage something, don't have it, because it becomes very destructive. I'm saying that if you not train your kids, and a lot of adults too, if somebody calls you and give you a Range Rover today, you have nothing to take to manage a Range Rover. It's not a gift, because it becomes very detrimental. I'm not saying that it's not a good gift, but by the time one shock absorber goes, your salary can't carry it. You understand? So I'm saying that if you don't build the capacity to handle something new, it's also true for kids going into work environments. They have no idea of the politics that happens there. They have no idea of what to do with the money when they earn, and it now does more harm than good. So Emmanuel, what I'm saying is that for me, I would rather focus on building the culture that allows you to learn on a consistent basis. So if, for example, what works for you is that based on your busy schedule, you can craft out 2 hours every day. Stay on the 2 hours, but be very deliberate with your 2 hours. I have people who say, I'm learning front end. And I say, what's your strategy of learning the front end? How far are you from the goal state? They can't even describe what the goal state is. They're just learning front end. You can't, nobody grows that way. You need to have a very definite growth. This is what success looks like to me, right? And this is how much of hours I can allot to this particular thing. This is what I want to read every hour. And if I continue reading like this, I would have covered X period of time within X period of time. Like, that's how I believe. And I was going to speak about accountability. You have to teach kids to be accountable. And this is not them telling you what they did in school, but also a lot of adults are not accountable. It means that a day can just come and somebody say, let's go and play, and you waste the whole day, like, because you're not accountable to any. This is how much I have to work. This is how much I have to rest. You'll be more deliberate. Nobody will just come from anywhere to intrude into your schedule and scatter everything. So if you are not very disciplined, accountable, you struggle with tech. It will be a soft skill you struggle with tech, right? And the same thing is true with money. You need to be accountable. How much did you have at the beginning of the month? A lot of people have sent the salary of March already, as I'm thinking. Some people have finished it, right? That's not accountability. And how do you teach kids how to manage their own funds too? So I'm saying that if you don't start by being accountable to yourself, it will be very hard to teach kids the same thing. And it will also show when you're learning to code. It will be very difficult. So if you say it's a 10,000 hour rule for you to learn how to code, the question I'll ask, what would you be doing with the 10,000 hours? What would you be learning in the 10,000 hours? If you tell me, then I'll know whether it is truly a rule that will work for you or it won't work for you. I don't need 10,000 hours, right? But probably you need, or probably you don't, but just know what works for you. Some of these people come up with the philosophy of what works for them, because last 10 years, I don't think there was a 10,000 hour rule. And somebody came up with that. So we are in the constant, journey of discovering ourselves. It is true for us as adults, and that's why as parents, be very mindful of how rigid you are, because even you yourself, there are so many things you don't know that you are discovering about yourself. Now come you tell them the beginning and end of everything they must do. No, let them also evolve. Just make sure you encourage them as you're encouraging yourself to evolve. That's what I can say very importantly. Don't be so rigid. This is it or die. No, try to say this is it, but you are open to exploring, be aware of consequences that you'll be responsible for. Yeah, so I hope I answered your question. Yeah. So for you or for anybody who wants to come into any aspect of tech, I would say be very empirical about it. And by empirical, let me see if I can show you an example. My background goes away. So behind me is a board, right? Behind me is a board, and the board, can you see my screen?
And that's
I have a board.
Piano. That's a guitar there, right?
That's a guitar, yes.
Okay,
Yes. With this board, every time I come to the office, there are things that I've listed. On this side are books to read. On this side are tasks to do. And here are the things that are in progress in the center. So every time I come to the office, I am not just rambling and, okay, what will I do today? What do I feel like doing today? No, there is a goal. And sometimes I put timelines, and that's why I have stickers on there. So this will be done by the ending of January, beginning of February, like that. So things are not loosely coupled, right? Some of them I will write. Yes, I am a computer person, but I write with my hands, right? So that you'll be more. Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, you're done.
Yes, because if you don't create that level of discipline, you are going to fall into, in electricity, there is a concept of virtual power, right? It is created by inductive load. At least you say I'm a system engineer, so allow me to go into engineering. The concept of virtual power and it's created by inductive load. And just because the same way the electricity we use today, but when you have things like inductors, like this fan, anything that has rotor creates a false sense of power alongside the real one that is being consumed. So that the money you pay for electricity is actually the false electricity generated by these kind of devices and the actual one being consumed. So some people end up paying like twice or at least slightly above what they actually consuming because another false sense has been created. And that's why a lot of industries pay much more, not because they have crazy stuff, but because the more heavier turbines they have, I don't want to go into the actual process of what happens by the backward circuit and creating the virtual sense of power. So just like we have power that I'm paying for that I'm not using, a lot of people also have the same sense of success that is not true, right? And it could be because you don't have the real thing. So anything that looks like progress, it's okay for you. And that's how you waste a lot of time with that sense. Company does that. They give you a false sense of success. When they give you appraisals and they tell you are doing this good, and you feel very good about it. But the question is, are you really doing good personally? If you be honest, if you have that sense of what success looks like, are you really doing good? People don't know. So long as the company say I'm doing good, and that's it. So long as society say I'm doing good, that's it. So you have a lot of virtual power created by friends, by society, by even school, by work, and you have actually never arise to your full potential because of all these things around you. Yeah, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, I was going to ask that. Apparently, that's a guitar right beside your blackboard, your whiteboard, rather. Okay. So apparently, you don't need to be, you don't need to convince me. You play, you are a music person. Yeah,
yes, around right? Music.
I don't know if you play the guitar or you're a music person. I mean, for you to have a guitar in your house.
Yes, I play the guitar.
So how do you? Okay, so imagine you play the guitar and you are a techie. You know, you need to even give us a tech master class. You know?
Yes.
So how do you manage both? How do you manage both? How do you fuse both?
That's an excellent question, and I'll answer like this. And it's a very deep answer, but also very simple answer. If you live all your life dividing life into different compartments, you will struggle to manage the different cacophony, like the different directions things are going. You will struggle. If you live all your life streamlining them into one with the same principle, you will see that they're actually not different, they are the same. Okay? A part of me is the creativity is enhanced by music. And that's why I like music. I listen to music a lot because it facilitates or enhances that part of me. And it works differently for a lot of people. Some people like rock music, and I've hardly seen a true programmer that in some sense doesn't like music, or I've not seen a very artistic person that in a way doesn't like music. I've not seen that because we are a very complex being, right? And it is true for music, it is true for food. I tell people that your diet affects how you code. People don't believe it. The quality of your code is the quality of your food. Yes. If you don't eat, your brain actually it's a mechatronic device. A part of it is flesh. A part of it is also electronics. So and you need to feed it with enough water, enough glucose. If you don't have enough of that, how would it be? That's why a lot of people wake up very tired in the morning, and you carry that tired self to want to code. And coding is a very creative and taxing process. So how would you be able to do that if you don't code? If you don't eat well, right? Before you're kind of employee who like that. So I'm saying that don't see them as separate. Understand what works for you. A part of you needs exercise. Another part of you needs food. Another part of you needs, to communicate with people. If you kill any part and try to say, okay, a day like it's for social hangouts, you don't know how that ties to what you're doing, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Right. So yeah, music is not different from coding. That's all I'm just trying to say.
I particularly love how you're even saying it.
Yeah,
so
you are muted, right?
Yes, I don't understand that. So everything it works together. Your music works with your coding, and ties in with what the last speaker Adida said. Her reading works with her spoken word. Her music works with her spoken word. So I like that. Oh, my internet is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, I think it's possible now.
I was going to ask you a question, but you've answered it already. I was going to ask that. Do you think it's compulsory for every child to coach? But I see that you answered it already, because you explained that not everyone will code, but everyone can be involved in technology. So you've answered it already. So I think actually, I don't have any.
I think everybody codes. It's just how you code that differs. Everybody codes. Everybody, on this
the way you technology guys code. I mean, I live with a technology person, and I see how those green and red lines just go up and down, and it gives me a headache. So it's not my thing. But I have where I explore technology. I mean, what I'm doing now, I'm exploring technology. I'm using technology. Yeah. So I really like how you broke it down, and how you make people understand that there are different sides to it. So don't think that you must be coding. It doesn't have to be coding. Yeah. One of my issues now is I see there are a lot of coding. academy springing up. And every time you hear them say, oh, your child should learn how to code. And I'm like, what if the child doesn't like, what if the child can't code? What if they don't understand coding? What if their brain is like mine? They can't understand coding. They can't understand chemistry. Are you going to force them?
No.
You understand? So you need to know that coding is just one aspect. That's what you say. Coding is just one aspect. There are so many other aspects of technology. You see food technologies, you see biotechnology, you see there are so many aspects. So you just fit into where you fit in, and don't let anybody pressure you. Or don't let, as you say, don't let anybody pepper you. So that's
but I like to say everybody a programmer, because you need programmer to live in this life. You might not be the person that programs and speak to the computer, but you need, because you make choices, billions, every billion second. You make every single time.
Food artists,
yes.
The way they arrange.
Should I go to the walk? Let's stay back.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can program in your own way. So thank you so much, Laolu. In fact, you gave us a number of masterclasses. You went from money, you went to tech, and when you started on your tech explanation, I was like, okay, we'll need a separate masterclass for that. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, for giving us your time, for being vulnerable with us. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who asked the questions, and I hope your questions have been answered. So on that note, I'll end your session, Laolu. So thank you so much. Okay. So that's our tech guy, I'm not particularly tech inclined, but I can do the front end of a website, I think that's that. Small things, but I can work my way around. But so we as parents, we shouldn't get carried away. We should never get carried away. I like the way Laolu look at it, Don't think that tech is only coding. No, don't. There's so much more to it. There's so much more. You can't just think that, it's one thing. It's not. There's so much more to it. And then he also said that, and this is something that I think every speaker has mentioned in their own way. They said that you need to create an enabling environment for yourself. It's very important. And the enabling environment doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a computer or it has to be something tech related. It has to go along the line that they're comfortable with. Don't force it into them. Don't force creativity out of them. You can't force it. You just force it as person. Okay? And then of course the society projects on us, tells us, this is what success looks like, this is what failure looks like. So we shouldn't get carried away as parents. One of the things that I see a lot of parents is that you get parents say, my child was the best. Every parent wants bragging rights. They want to be able to boast about something their child did. So some parents, because of that, put their kids send their kids into activities the kids don't have any business in. You hear parents say things like, my child was the best in the mathematics class. My child is very good in mathematics. That child may be good in mathematics, but someone else's child may not understand that. If you're like me, my mates were passing chemistry. My mates were doing well with chemistry, same chemistry, but I couldn't pass it. I'm not because I was dull. I passed every other subject, but I never passed chemistry. There's no history of me passing chemistry. So why would I have? Imagine if my parents had been, you have to be a doctor. A doctor. You have to be a doctor. No, you can't be a doctor. You can't be a doctor without chemistry. You have to pass chemistry. So I'd have just gone on and on a journey that I had no business in. So as parents, this goes back to what I've been telling you. It goes back to my message, my basic message. Be intentional about your child's creativity. But you cannot be intentional about what you are not aware of. It is what you know that you can be intentional about. As Laolu said, you can only culture into people what you know. So you need to know, you need to be aware of what your child is creating, of where they are good at, where of their strengths. And then you can culture it, you can develop it, you can do it. And that's the whole purpose of it. So on that note, thank you very much for being with us. Tomorrow is our final day, and we are rounding up with the moms panel. So I'm bringing on speakers who have kids, and we're going to talk about these things in real time, like how you feel when your child scribbles on your wall, things like that, real life experiences. We're going to be talking about that. So I hope that you